Hello, this is Pat Lynch. Welcome to the Career Pathways Podcast, brought to you from the luxurious KILT studios in the basement of the Mabee Simpson Library at Lyon College. With me, as always, is producer Jayson.
Hello.
Are you there, Jayson?
I'm here. Hello.
Oh, there he is. Okay, yes.
I'm trying not to yell into the mic. So.
Oh, right. Yes. Well, thank you very much. And also with me is Dr. Fonzie Geary, our associate professor of
Professor.
Professor.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a full professor.
A full professor. And as we say, I thought they weren't going to fact check me on this podcast. What is going on? But nevertheless,
we're only 10 seconds in. Yeah.
10 seconds in and I made my first error. Okay. But who's counting? But thank you. This is one, I always talk about being the proud father of a theater kid. My daughter's, in the biz.
Right.
But this has been long overdue because I got a definite affinity and fondness for all things theater. So welcome. Thing we always start the podcast is just a general question to learn more about you. Kind of you, like what was your journey that brought you here to Lyon College?
Ooh. Well, that's a big question.
I'm going to sit back and relax.
Well, I had completed my my doctoral education at the University of Missouri in Columbia, and for 2 years I served as a visiting assistant professor of theater at a small liberal arts college in Northeast Missouri. That was understood to be a temporary assignment, and it was.
Yeah.
Right. It was supposed to be for 1 year. They gave me an additional year, but then, there was nothing after that. And the market was fairly bad in terms of what jobs were available, and we were almost we were getting to the end of that school year, March, April. Yeah. I think it was April, and I saw this job come up, and of course I applied for it, and I got an interview almost immediately, and it was it was really serendipitous the way it all happened because we had nothing, we were didn't have anything to fall back on really, and didn't have anything, and this job came up late in the academic year. Like I said, I believe it was April when it first appeared. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't until May, until it was all set, like early May, that it was all settled. So it was quite a whirlwind.
And how long? What year was that when you came?
That
to Lyon?
Was my first semester here. Was the fall of 2013.
All right.
So it was 2013 when I came here.
And what was the theater program like when you came in and you started in the fall?
It was not good. It was there were a lot of challenges,
like what?
For sure. Well, there had been some, the college as a whole had undergone a huge assessment from the Higher Learning Commission, and the theater program specifically did not do so well in that assessment. It had always been a small program. There was only one full-time faculty there, and not many majors. And the decision was made then to do away with the major.
Oh,
and to eliminate the major and drop it down to a minor because it wasn't doing well. That, as to my understanding, sort of precipitated my predecessor's retirement and it left a lot of it left some people upset. Students. It left some students upset. So when I came in, there were students who liked me and those that did not, no matter what I did. You know, so it was a real challenge. Plus, I had no tech director, and it was just me teaching all the classes. Plus, they wanted me to revamp the major, and create an interdisciplinary sort of Frankenstein major out of it. So I was also trying to wrestle with that as well. But I also think that there was also a bit of encouragement in that, because you look around nationally and theater programs are being cut all the time. Theater programs are being eliminated all the time. If the college, I thought to myself, you know, if the college had wanted to just squash it, they certainly could have. I mean, that was a perfect opportunity that they could have said, all right, well, we just won't have it anymore, period. And that happens at colleges and universities across the country, that theater is either cut or it's just outright eliminated. Well, they certainly could have, but they didn't. And even though it was just a minor that the first year I was here, they made it, the administration made it very clear that, no, we want this back. And so as challenging as all that was, I took a great deal of heart and encouragement in the institution, because that attitude is rare. I mean, when I go to conferences and I talk to other colleagues that are in theater at other institutions, what I hear is the administration, there's no support, we have no money, they're always wanting to cut us. I don't know if I'm going to have a job next year, or you know. So it's a lot of anxiety and a lot of angst, and that is one thing that I can say for Lyon College is that I've never experienced that. I wouldn't say that I haven't experienced angst, because when you're the only faculty member and you've only got like a handful of there's always going to be a little bit of angst. But I took such encouragement from the fact that the college made evident that they wanted this. They wanted me, and they wanted this program. And it was up to me to try to cobble something together. And so I took it was encouraging in that regard. And so by the end of the first year, I came up with a plan, such as it was, where I sort of created 3 different tracks, 3 different concentrations, I think is what I called them. So the students took, for the major, they took all the courses that I was able to teach, which was everything minus tech. And then they took an 18-hour, 9-hour, I think it was 9 hours of either art, music, or English to supplement what they weren't getting. It wasn't ideal, certainly, but it was something, and it was better than nothing. And the second year I was here, we had a major again.
And the tracks would be like performance, stage management, or
the art in theory was supposed to replace like design, drawing, rendering. And then English would be more geared toward students who felt a little bit more scholarly, looking at textual analysis and that kind of thing. And then music and theater, of course, just go together kind of naturally. So that was the idea. It was not ideal, and it certainly wasn't what I wanted, but it was what I could have at the moment. And we sustained that for a few years, and then managed to, and this is a credit to Dustin Bork, one of our professor of art, who came up with the idea, hatched the plan of, hey, we need a new art faculty.
Ah, yes.
So what if we just hired somebody to teach both
Mm-hmm.
and have a dual appointment, and that way you could get some help over there. And that's when we hired Matt. We got that
Maggie
position
Gale.
approved, and Maggie Gale was hired. And oh boy, that was fantastic. She is magnificent.
Yes.
Just having a tech director and having somebody that knows how to do that stuff, because that's I can do playwriting, performance, scholarship. But the technical stuff was not something I was ever good at, and not something I ever had a great, overwhelming desire to learn. Plus, I'm really not good at it. I love to tell this story. It was when we were doing As You Like It, and I told Maggie I wanted to do I wanted the set to be like vaudeville, because As You Like It is a very loose play. It's like a series of scenes, really. There's not a lot of cohesion. It's really strange structurally. But so I said, this is basically like a vaudeville.
Right.
You have a scene and it's funny, and then you have a different scene, and sometimes you have
different roll out.
Right, different acts. Yeah, different acts that roll out.
Yeah.
So, so make it look like a vaudeville house. And so she did, and she put down footlights, quote unquote. And during one of the techs, we were having there was an issue with one of them, and I swear, all I did was pick it up. All I did was touch it. I just touched it, and it broke. Yeah, it just like I don't even know how it happened, but it just broke. And that's what happens when I try to do.
So you leave it to the
I just shouldn't have touched it, and it would have been fine.
With your what brought you into theater? Was it like the stereotypical thing is that you wanted to be an actor, and then you kind of find, okay, there's other paths. But what was your journey?
It was circuitous and not at all stereotypical. I'll tell you what really where it the first time I ever did a play, I was Linus in a Charlie Brown's Christmas when I was in 5th grade. I was 10 years old, and I really loved that experience, and it was just I just loved it. But then there weren't really opportunities after that. And
once you do Linus, it goes downhill from there. So.
That's true. Yeah, I had that big monologue. The big, it was great though. I really, I have really fond memories of doing that. But there weren't really opportunities after that, and I think that I was the first person in my family to go to college. I grew up in a working class with a working class background. So we weren't going to the theater on the weekend, or taking theater trips to New York or whatever. That wasn't a thing. And my freshman year of high school, they were doing a musical, they were doing a play, and I wanted to audition, and I didn't, because I thought, well, I'm not good enough, which is silly, because it's a high school play and everybody got to be in it. But anyway, in my head, I did. And my sophomore year of high school, I got put in an English class with my teacher was Mr. Crabtree, Robert Crabtree, at Pleasure Ridge Park High School. And he did a unique thing for his final project of the year. We had to write a play. We had to write and act in a play. And he gave awards to the best play and the best actor and the best actress. And the first day of school, this wasn't coming around until June. The first day of school, I started, I'm going to win. Yeah. I'm going to get that. I mean, I was immediately just just enthralled by that possibility. And as we progressed through the year, he ended up being the most significant mentor, one of the most significant mentors for me. His teaching was amazing. And I was just so drawn in by him. And it's funny because most students I don't think would be. He was a very humble man, very austere. Yeah. Just wore a slacks and a collared shirt, no tie, very plain looking. Somebody you wouldn't notice. But a wise old man. I was actually toward the end. I think he taught one more year after me, and then he retired. Yeah. So I got him right before he was going out. And I was so just drawn. And he taught us Julius Caesar, and we read All Quiet on the Western Front, and the way that he approached that, and that is still one of my very favorite books ever. But anyway, we get to the end of the year, and I won. Long story short, we put it together, and I ended up doing very well, and I won, and that ignited a flame. The school did not do a play that year, but the next year they were planning one. I was like, I don't even care what it is. I'm going to be in it. And I was in the play my junior year, my senior year. We did Guys and Dolls my junior year, Oklahoma my senior year. And then, funny thing, that was it.
Yeah.
And because one of the hang-ups that I got stuck with in my head was that, well, but you can't really do this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can't. So what are you going to really do? And that took a lot for me to overcome.
Yeah.
And I got to college, and I mean, I was so devastated my senior year of high school when Oklahoma ended, and I can remember sitting on the bleachers and just being devastated because I thought that I'm never going to be able to do this again.
Right.
And I got to college, and I was a psych major. I majored in psychology, so there was no question of me doing. And something happened. The first week I was there, I got there the earliest day I could possibly be there, so I could acclimate myself to the campus. This was at Eastern Kentucky University, and I was in my room reading the school newspaper because we still had those that came out every week. And I just happened to notice auditions.
Oh, for what?
For Hamlet.
All right, there you go.
And I had never read Hamlet. Didn't know really anything about it, but I knew it was Shakespeare. And I was just, the possibility that I could be in a Shakespeare play was just amazing to me. And I was immediately up, and I was so excited. And I went to the audition absolutely cold. I didn't know anything. I didn't have any notion of what I was doing. 65 people showed up to audition for that play. They only cast 19, and I was one of them. Yeah. And I was cast as Rosencrantz, which isn't really a big deal, but it didn't matter. I was in Hamlet.
Yeah.
And I just was so excited. And from there, that is what got me hooked into college. From then on, I was rehearsing, or I was auditioning every semester. But all the while thinking, well, this is a hobby. I just like to do it on the side.
Like community theater.
It's not a it's not a serious. It's not a serious thing. And then I started taking it more and more and more seriously. And if I wasn't cast, which was often, because it was a fairly large program, and not everybody got cast, and I just kept coming back and kept coming back, and I would get so distraught every time I would lose. and then I would lose to the same people again and again, which is terribly frustrating. And then finally, I was a fifth-year senior because I had decided at that point that I was going to double major.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I'll go ahead and do the major, even though just for fun.
Yeah.
just to do it. But my career-wise, I was going to be a clinical psychologist. That was what I was focused on career-wise. But that was a very abstract thought, without a whole lot of substance behind it, without a whole lot of real thinking behind, how is that going to work, and without a lot of self-awareness, because all of my friends, I didn't socialize with anybody in the psych building.
Yeah.
No one.
They were all.
They were more like colleagues.
Yeah.
That was where I went to work.
Yeah.
All of my friends were theater people, but I didn't recognize that.
Right.
I didn't appreciate the significance of that. But my fifth year, I had decided that I was going to audition for everything, even the musical. I was kind of shied away from doing musicals because I can't dance, and I can sing okay, but not really well, and I don't dance at all. But I was like, I don't care anymore. I just want to be around it.
Yeah.
And I can remember the play that they were doing in the spring was a play called Down the Road by Lee Blessing. And everybody was talking about it, and every male student in that department wanted the part of the serial killer in that play. It was the most sought after role. And I can remember I was in the musical, the early part of the spring. The last of that performance of that show, I was, again, so devastated, but even more, because I was convinced that I'm not gonna be good enough to make it, because I never make those I never get those parts. And I'm going to graduate in May. I'm going to go off to my PhD school at that time I was going into the master's program in clinical psych, which was a 60-hour terminal degree, master's degree for clinical psychology, and with the hopes that I would get a PhD afterwards. And I'm going to graduate and go on and do that. I've already been accepted in their program, and that this is it. This is the last time I'll ever be, And I was distraught.
Yeah.
I mean, the entire curtain call, we were doing it. The musical was Robber Bridegroom, and so everybody, those musicals are happy, and so we were all supposed to be clapping and stomping our feet, and it was kind of a hoedown Western-ish musical, and I just was sitting there clapping and stomping my feet, and tears running down my face the whole time. And I went out the back of the theater, off stage left. Gosh, I still remember this. Off stage left, out around, and there was a hallway. And if you took a left, you went toward the dressing room. If you took a right, there was a door that went outside. And I went out the door, and instead of going left, I went right, and I went out that door, and I just sobbed.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe, that this was it. This was, seriously, it was over. And of course, at the cast party, everybody was talking about Down the Road.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to these boys talk about this and that, and I'm thinking, I can't beat them.
Yeah.
But I went about preparing for it as I always would. And this was a play that was very much a psychological drama.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting how this comes full circle, because it really enabled me to put everything, all of my psych education, combined with what I'd learned in theater, and it synthesized in this preparation that I made for the show. I read the play 7 times before the audition, before I even took an audition. And I went in, and I can remember beforehand, my roommate, who I thought a lot of, he was a very good friend of mine, and I thought, well, you know, I'm auditioning for this, and this other fella that's always there is auditioning too, and this is the part, and my roommate said, oh, you're not going to get that, because the other guy looks, you know, he looks he
looks like a serial killer.
He has the look and the attitude, and that was his
compliment.
Yeah, right. And he said, yeah, you're not going to get that. And I can remember I was on the phone with my mother, and I said, well, you know, this big part coming up or whatever it is, and a lot of people are wanting it, but I think I can get it. And she said, well, you always say that, but you never do.
Was that meant in a positive?
No.
Okay,
no. And
thank you for the validation.
So, yes. And I thought, oh, okay, thanks. So, well, I went anyway, full of all this anxiety and self-doubt and everything. And I auditioned, and I can remember reading the part of the serial killer with someone, and I realized that she was getting uncomfortable sitting with me, reading these lines. And she just stopped right in the middle of the scene and said, you're really talented.
Yeah.
I just wanted to tell you that. And I just said, thank you. Let's continue. Because I didn't want to hear that. Yeah. I had heard that before.
Right.
My other friends had told me in the past, oh, you read really well for this. You read really, you were doing so good. I don't know why you didn't get cast, but I didn't.
Right.
And so I didn't want to hear anything about how good I was doing, because that never, I was just so focused on what I wanted. And when I left, or right before I left, and one of my friends asked me, why do you think you did? And I said, well, to be fair, I think that I read for Bill Reach better than anybody in there. But I won't get it because I don't look right, or I don't. And so, and this other fella always got, and so anyway, that was a really, really long night. And things happened that I won't go into, but it was a very long and a painful night. And when I woke up the next morning, I actually skipped class that day because I had directing, theater directing, and they were all in it. And I did not want to go in the loser again.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go in the loser again. And so that class, I believe, was at 10:30. So I just slept through it, got myself up, showered, waited till, you know, everybody got to the cast list early, you know, 8 a.m. or whatever, you know, as soon as they could get there. I didn't this time. I just let it pass, and I waited until, I guess it was around noon probably. There was nobody much in the building. Most people, I think, had gone to lunch at that time. And I remember it was a Friday, and it was April. A Friday in April, or no, March. Excuse me, March. The show was in April. It was March the 5th, or March the 3rd. March the 3rd. And I remember going in, and you know, theaters always, they're circuitous. You know, they're like labyrinths. You know, so I went in the back door,
just wound
through the wound through, went through the backstage area into the, and that's how we all came in. Nobody went through the front door of the Campbell Building. So I got to where the green room was, because the call board was outside the green room. And I can remember I got to the door opening, and I just kind of looked around. Is anybody there? Nobody's here. Okay. I wanted to be alone. Somebody was there, but I didn't see them.
Right.
And it was basically like a foyer. And here's the men's dressing room. Here's the women's dressing room. And then the green room went into there. And then there's the foyer with the call board. And so I could see that the cast list was posted. There were only three characters in this play, 2 men, 1 woman. And it's a pair of journalists, a husband and wife journalists, who are interviewing the serial killer. And so I just took a deep breath, and I put my eyes down, and I just walked over to because I knew where I'd been there enough times that I could walk without watching. And I got myself positioned right about where I knew it was. And I took a deep breath, and I just looked up, and I saw his name.
Yeah.
And then I saw my name. And I was so angry.
Yeah.
I was just about, and that the first thought was I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And then I thought, no, you'll do it, because that's what you do.
Yeah.
You can't, you're not going to be like that. And as those thoughts are going through my head, my eyes are following the ellipses from the actor's name back to the character's name. And as I am following those dots, I see William Reach. And then I scan back, and I see my name. And I scan and I see, and I realize what has happened. And I absolutely exploded.
Yeah.
I was jumping up and down, screaming this was the middle of the day. There were classes going on.
Yeah.
I didn't care. It was absolutely reckless abandon. And I just, now I'm looking for somebody to hug, right? And there's nobody there. And I'm looking around, and I'm running around, and there's nobody there. And I just scream, and I run down the hallway up into the lobby of the Campbell Building. And there were 2 people. There were 2 of my friends out there in the lobby. Thankfully, both of them were females. So these weren't some of the boys that lost out.
Yeah.
Because then that would have been awkward.
Yeah.
But I ran to the lobby and threw up my hands and was screaming, and they all ran. I mean, it was the most joyous thing. And my experience in that part, and having really earned it.
Right.
It was one of the most joyous moments of my life ever. And So after that experience, while I was graduating, and I was going to graduate school to be a clinician at Eastern Kentucky University. And over the course of that time, I started really thinking about it.
What do I do?
Yeah, because, I told everybody this was what I was going to do. I'd committed to this. I've already accepted in the program, so I went ahead. And the first day of orientation for that graduate program, and they were going over everything we were going to be doing, what we could expect, all the things you do at orientation. And I was just overwhelmed with this incredible sense of dread. And I remember thinking to myself, what am I doing here? I don't want to do this.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to do this. I need to leave right now. But then, well, you can't do that. I'm not a terribly impulsive person generally.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be really impulsive to just up and be like, you know what? I made a mistake. Sorry.
Yeah.
No. So I rationalized it. Well, you just have cold feet. You're just nervous. We're just getting started. You'll adjust. You'll get it.
Yeah.
Well, by that December, by the end of that first semester, I was so miserable that it wasn't merely difficult. It wasn't just difficult to get out of bed. It was difficult to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember waking up on Christmas morning that December. This was December of 2000. And thinking, I don't even care. I don't want to get up. I don't even want to get up.
At that time, was it apparent the reason why?
It was, but then again, I was still plagued by that notion of, but you can't do this.
So you're torn between
right
desire and imposter syndrome.
Right. Being a psychologist, people do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a respectable profession.
Right.
That's something that people
can make
actually
money.
do.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. It's practical. You can make money. It's something that will always be needed because people are always going to need
crazy
therapy.
People out there.
Well, yeah. Well,
sorry, little off color there. Yeah.
But and I got hung up with this notion that, well, I can't. I'm not good enough. People don't make money at it. I'm not going to be going to Broadway. And so there was a lot of this, a lot of tearing. But I went through that graduate program and I finished it.
Yeah.
And I have a master's degree in clinical psychology. I went right into the place I did my internship, hired me. So I had a job. I had not a lot of debt. I had everything, because this was before the tuition costs and things like that exploded. So I did not have a lot of debt. But I continued to be so miserable in my work, and to the point that I just wanted it all to go away. And at the end of that, so I graduated in May of 2002. By December, I was coming around for my 6-month review, or at that clinic, and what a surprise! They didn't want to keep me. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's fine. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know that I'm never going to do this ever again.
Yeah.
And so I went and I worked as a substitute teacher for a time, just to have money. And And I started thinking about, well, maybe this can work. Maybe this can be okay. You know, I always thought a lot of my theater teachers, my directors, and I eventually came around to the idea that working in academia and teaching young people and being around and being mentors to young people,
right.
Yeah, that was a good way to invest myself in this art form that I have discovered. No, it's not a hobby. I actually need it like I need the air to breathe.
Yeah.
And I've learned, you know, I came out and learned so much from that experience. And so that's why, and being at Lyon College, I think that the attitude and approach that I have learned from all of that fits very well with the liberal arts mission of the college.
Right.
Because whenever I hear students or parents say, oh, well, what are you going to do with that? Or are you going to go to Broadway?
Right.
Well, first of all, the answer to the second question is most likely no.
Right.
But you're talking about less than 1% of the population that works in the theater.
Right.
There are innumerable people that work in this business that you've never heard of,
right.
that aren't famous. And and I came to realize how absolutely absurd that is.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever says, oh, you majored in biology and didn't win a Nobel Prize?
Yeah.
What a loser.
Yeah.
People don't say that, but somehow people have it in their heads that unless you're in Hollywood or Broadway that you failed
Right.
at your, that's nonsense. It's absolute garbage. And the answer to the first question, what can you do with this? Pretty much whatever you want.
Yeah.
Pretty much whatever you want. I have a friend I went to undergrad with who majored in theater, graduated with a theater degree, and then went to law school.
Right.
And he's a practicing attorney in Cincinnati, Ohio. Last I heard, he might have moved since then. But so that's what he did.
Right.
And did that help him on it? Absolutely, it did. I mean, you learn such a wide range of skills in this discipline that unless you are wanting to do something that is hyper-STEM related,
Right.
You can do pretty much anything.
Well, my daughter's, she started acting, very competitive.
Mhm.
She moved to stage management and found that also very competitive. And
Yeah.
But what she eventually found was to be on the business side of theater, which, you know, being father of, you know, was a business person. And I remember the day where she told me she was going to major in theater in school. And
Yeah.
and of course, all the practical career services stuff,
Oh,
just
sure.
like that I did it out of love for her.
Oh, sure.
But then it was this. But then it was just like you. I saw this. This was the air that she breathes,
Mm-hmm.
and so just do it, commit to it, and enjoy it and do it well. And it all worked out. And so yeah, it's one that, you know, this podcast in many ways is to showcase every major
Mm-hmm.
that we offer here at the school. And yes, theater is one that, you know, it's not something that it's a vanity major or that it's going to take you nowhere. So, you know, you had what kind of pathways can they take? There's things like staying in theater, but then it's like everything else that
it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I had an experience here in Batesville where I there was an accident during one of the theater warm-ups we were doing, and I had to take a kid to the hospital because he was doing a thing and he concussed himself.
Yeah.
Not badly,
Yeah.
but he ended up, but I took him to the ER just to make sure that he was okay, and the ER doctor found out we were doing theater, and he said, "Oh, I was a theater major.
Yeah.
This is an MD."
Yeah.
And I thought, really? Now, I'm sure he majored in other thing. I'm sure he had a double or a
Sure.
triple, But I was so amazed. But then I thought, I'm not that surprised because he had the most incredible bedside manner of any physician I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
He was communicative. He was engaging. His ability to just be a human being was really incredible, impressive. And that is something that I emphasize to students, to their parents all the time. Now, I have colleagues that are very, very serious and take the conservatory approach of, I'm training artists.
Yes.
And that's fine, but that's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing here is my goal is always to how can I make this student a better human being?
Mm-hmm.
And that is ultimately what theater teaches you to do. You learn about culture, you learn about ideas that you wouldn't otherwise think of. You see in 3 dimensions ideas being dramatized in ways that you just won't get from a textbook when you see it 3 dimensions in front of you. And my goal is always, what can I do to help this person become a better human being? And I joke with my majors all the time, and with respect, I said, look, if you go off to Broadway and win a Tony Award, I'll be very proud of you. But that's not the goal.
Mm-hmm.
If that happens, that's awesome, but that's not the goal. Theater is the ultimate liberal art.
Yeah.
They learn any soft skill that you can think of, whether it's oral communication, whether it's the study of difficult text and finding meaning in difficult text, analyzing character, taking the point of view of cultures that they are not a part of, looking at history in ways that they'd never think to look at it, because every play is a reflection of its time. When I directed Bus Stop last spring, I mean, I had, these are Gen Zers, so the 1950s might as well be
prehistoric times,
right. And so we had a lot of conversations about what life in America was like in the 50s, because all of that is reflected in this in this play.
Yeah. One thing as far as it being the ultimate liberal arts major also is that your program is welcoming to non-theater majors.
Yes.
Which is wonderful, because I living through my daughter's experience, she went to Gainesville Theater Alliance, and so it was a big program, and really non-theater people really would not find a place for it, where I come here and it's just, and I'm familiar with many of the students, and it's wonderful seeing many of them there, because they're doing it for love, for growth, to just be part of that, almost kind of your beginning story as far as what you wanted to be there. Are they going to pursue it further? You never know.
Right.
But the thing was that it's just providing that, like an open home for others to come in and be creative.
Yes. I mean, at Lyon, all students are welcome to participate.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon for me to have a student like parachute in, do a show once.
Yeah.
And well, that was fun, and move on. And that's fine. If you want to come in and do a show just for the experience of doing it, just because you can, that's great. Any student is welcome to participate.
So what about kind of elderly career service directors? Is there any openings there?
Well, I try to cast the students first, but if it comes down to, I mean, there have been, I can probably count on one hand how many times I've had to outsource a performance, a role. It does happen occasionally, but I try to make sure that the students get fed first.
All right,
So.
I'll keep knocking. This Thursday, Harvey.
Yes.
Tell us about Harvey.
Harvey is a Pulitzer Prize winning play. The Pulitzer Prize is the Pulitzer Prize for drama is the #1 award for drama. That's the highest. Excuse me. And this is a Pulitzer Prize winning play from 1944 by Mary Chase. She's one of the few women to have won a Pulitzer, especially back then. And this is a play I chose in part because it's a crowd pleaser. It is an incredibly popular play, high school, college, university, all levels. I mean, it's incredibly popular play. So that was part of the reason, but this is also a play ultimately about faith, and being able to find happiness in the day-to-day of every life, everyday life. And so I discovered, because Harvey has this reputation of being this kind of silly play about an invisible rabbit.
Right.
What else can you say? But as I worked on it, I came to recognize how really inspiring it is. How this is a story about a man who's happy, and because he is happy, everybody thinks he's crazy.
Right.
Because he's not happy about the things that they think he should be happy about.
Right.
He's not, he doesn't have the job and so he is happy in his friends. He's happy learning about people. He doesn't meet a stranger. Every person that he meets, he greets as if they are worth something, because they are. And so, but he finds himself surrounded by all of these people who don't understand.
Must be something wrong with him.
Yeah, there must be something wrong with him, because he's nice to everybody. Right. Elwood loves everybody, and that's just not normal. Yeah. And they want to put him in an institution, because he just loves everybody. And that's just wrong.
Yeah.
And aside from the fact that he, has this rabbit who is very much real, by the way. Harvey is a real character in the play. And he has this friend that he can see, but nobody else can. And because they can't see him, of course, they just think that Elwood is crazy.
Yeah.
But he's not crazy. He's just found his happiness. And there are, as funny and as zany as the play is, there are some really incredibly tender, almost melancholy moments. There's a moment in Act 2 where Elwood says to another young lady, she says, "Can you help me with this? I would help you do anything.
Yeah.
For you, I would do anything. I would almost be willing to live my life over again." Almost.
Yeah.
Almost. he repeats that we're almost. And the idea as he's describing Harvey and he's describing all of these people that come up to him in the bar, and they just tell us about things, all of their hopes, their dreams, all of the great things they've done, all of the bad things they've done. And when I introduce and because nobody ever brings anything small into a bar.
Yeah.
There is real pathos and hurt in this. And he says, when I introduce them to Harvey, he is so extraordinary that the same people seldom come back because they're envious.
Right.
And there's a little bit of envy in all of us. And isn't that too bad?
Yeah.
That's so much of the reason why we can't be happy is because of that envy of what other people have.
You're happy for what you have,
right?
What you don't.
Yeah.
So it's opening night is
Thursday night.
All right,
October 24th. The show is at 7. It starts at 7:30.
Yep.
It runs 7:30 Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then Sunday the 27th. It's a matinee at 2:00. The house will open 30 minutes before the show starts. I would encourage everybody out there to be on time. One of the things that is, or even a little early, because one of the things that I have kind of struggled with is getting not just students, but people in general. There are no previews in the theater. So it's not, if you come 15 minutes late, you've actually missed something.
Right.
And
also, I remember being for opening night a bus stop, and it was packed.
Yes,
and,
we had to
turn people away.
Yeah, we had to turn people away. I have added, I believe, 35 additional seats this time. Well, I brought out some platforms.
Okay.
And I have the gray chairs on the floor.
Yeah.
So we have about I've added, because Holloway has 72 in the permanent section. And then now bus stop, I did put seats on the floor. I've added an additional row on the floor with the platforms elevated. So we have capacity for 104.
All right.
So,
perfect. Well, I'll see you there on Thursday.
Okay.
All right. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I really enjoyed doing it. I was a bit nervous when I came in, but
it didn't show.
I loved it.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Geary.
Sure.
And thank you for watching. Well, thank you for listening, watching the Career Pathways podcast. As always, we always close the show out with producer Jayson telling us where our listeners and viewers can find the Career Pathways podcast.
So you can find us on 99.97% of platforms, the same number of germs that get killed with Germ-X. So that'd be your big ones like Spotify, YouTube, all those places, all those cool places. So check us out.
And, Dr. Geary, just like you, where you needed a tech person to kind of really put the program together, that's the same here. And I owe Jayson everything in terms of, we could not have ever, I had the idea, but idea is one thing, making it happen is another. So thank you, Jayson. I appreciate everything you do. And I appreciate all of our listeners and viewers. And I hope you join us again each and every week for the Career Pathways podcast. Take care.
This broadcast is sponsored in part by Lyon College and by KILT Studios.